Hello, guys. Welcome back to another podcast of the Jay Thakkar Show. Today we have Manil sir. He's an IELTS coach, and he has actually used lockdown in the most productive way, where he has grown exponentially on Instagram. And right now, the day we are recording podcast, he has completed 75,000 followers on Instagram. So first of all, many congratulations to you, sir.
Thank
And
you so much, Jay.
secondly, he has a mastery over communication skills. So this podcast, I'm going majorly going to focus on communication skills and the importance of English language in today's world. So without wasting any time, very warm welcome to you, sir, on the show.
Thank you so much, Jay. And I'll make a request. Please call me just Manil. All right. We don't need the sir. Manil would work perfectly fine.
Okay. So jumping directly on the communication part. According to you, as you have been training thousands of students, what major point which you have seen in students in terms of communication? Like, is it confidence? Is it vocabulary? Or what are those points which makes a student lacking in terms of communication skills?
Okay. So I think one of the biggest reasons why people do not do well with communication is because they do not develop their language enough. And then they try to operate beyond their area of comfort. Now, what do I mean here? See, you, there are two scenarios in which you communicate. One is your classroom where you're trying to learn, and then there is the life outside the classroom where there is no opportunity to learn, but you implement that what you've already learned in the classroom. Of course, you're learning, but what I mean is that you're now applying that what you've learned. And what people try to do is they will probably pick up 1% and then try and apply it 20% outside, right? I mean, my maths is very weak, so maybe I got that all wrong. I don't know, probably. But you get my point, right?
Yeah,
So what
completely.
I'm trying to say is that it is not so much confidence, it is not so much vocabulary, but it is more of not giving your language that opportunity to develop overall. There is this saying, no, that sorry, not the saying. There is a general belief, right, that if you speak confidently, everything can be passed off as correct, right? That is not true. That is not true. The more you know, the more confident you get. That is how it works.
True. So coming to the confidence part of it, uh, I would like to ask the question which I have faced when I started podcasting. Before that, in school, I used to give daily 45-minute speeches in my junior classes as a term. As I was selected as value ambassadors, I used to go in a particular lecture and go there and give a speech of around 30 to 45 minutes. So before starting my podcast, I was very confident that because I have given around 2 to 300 speeches in the span of 2 3 years, I will be able to do perfectly right on my first podcast. But uh, the very first podcast of mine was, uh, I from my side, it was a complete trash. Whatever positives you can get from that podcast is only because of the guest who was there. So after that, I was like, what happened to me? I was confident enough. I used to give speeches in English language only. Then also, why was I that bad in terms of communicating my thoughts and in terms of communicating my questions? So according to you, to a student who is trying to learn communication, who is trying to put out his things on internet and on public, what would be your advice to them? That should they go bang on like me? I would rather confidence, I would say overconfidence which I had, or what should they practice along with putting out things on internet?
So you know what? So let me. So first, let's talk about you, right? So because that will set a very good context for my answer. So you said, look, I gave 300 speeches in English, and yet when I first came out with my first podcast, I was not able to perform well. Look, understand one thing: giving a speech at school and recording a podcast may not necessarily be the same. Yes, you're speaking in English, but you are applying the language in two very different scenarios, two very different
True.
situations. And like it or hate it, you have to learn some new things every time, and you have to unlearn a few things every time. So there is always a learning curve in everything. Now I'll tell you what I let me give you an example. I started off my career as a French teacher back in 2005 or 6. Okay, I don't remember the year exactly. Oh god, I'm it's been a lot of years working now. So anyways, so I started off as a teacher, and then I was a hospitality grad, so I got back into hotels, and this was something that I did as a very short stint with my old school. So I started my career technically as a teacher. But when I finally got back to teaching, my first few sessions were absolutely unbelievably bad. In fact, the students were like, "Have we paid the right person?" And I was like, "Oh God, what happened?" But then that is how it is, because see, along the line, along my career path, I had completely lost touch with teaching, and I had to once again learn what I had to do. Now, I got into English teaching just as you did. So did I at school. I would participate in inter-school competitions. In fact, I was quite the name in Ahmedabad for inter-school competitions. I remember students kind of giving up. Maybe I'm giving myself a big pat on the back here, probably sounding a little narcissistic here, but that was the fact, right? I was brilliant at public speaking. I was brilliant. I would go into school competitions and win and come back home. That is how it was. That was the track record. At school level, I lost this one time when the school decided not to take me for the inter-school, and I was so upset about it that I registered an official complaint with the school. And school actually came back and said, "You know what? Yes, we see value in what you're saying. Yes, you'll be the representative." And yet, despite having this background, when I finally got into teaching for English, when I got into teaching for IELTS, the first month was an absolute nightmare. Right? But does that mean I should have done it any differently? No, I shouldn't have. I think I did it the best possible way. Now, there is no perfect way to do anything. There's always that what you can do. If you say, was I being overconfident in starting the podcast and, thinking that my experience will take me far? No, you were not. You were right. You always take decisions on the basis of your experience. That what you know is what you can, actually implement, apply, make the most of. And that is what you did. So that was absolutely right. There was nothing wrong with that. But you should always be ready to learn. I'll tell you what, now it's been 3.5 years to 4 years that I've been teaching for IELTS. Now, there are a lot of teachers out there who've been teaching for a lot longer, and they're brilliant. And yet, when I speak with some of them, I see they're very disillusioned with continuing as an IELTS trainer, or they feel that their career growth has become next to nil, it's stagnated. And then I look at these people and I realize they stopped learning. There is continuous learning, there is constant evolution, right? You cannot stop learning. So when you step in, make the most of what you already know, start from there, and then continue to learn. And then automatically with time, you'll find that you are on the top of your game.
True, 100%. And that's what I completely related with, because the kind of communication which I was, or the kind of speeches which I was used to do in my school days. Now, when I look back at them, I would easily find that, okay, here I could have done better. Here I could have done better. Even though those were 200 to 300 speeches, even though my first podcast was not that good, not up to the mark, but still the position where I am in, I can say that, okay, here I could have done better. Now, I'll tell you about today. Today, my podcast is going to release today on YouTube. Now, when I was editing it, I was like, I could have done here better, even though that is my most recent podcast. So,
Exactly.
and that's what I think my mentor also is telling me, that whatever you be, even though your work would be latest, that work would be your best till now, even tomorrow morning when you'll wake up, you may find some mistakes there.
Exactly, exactly. And Jay, what happens is, so I'll tell you what, there is, I think a lot of us know of the term inertia, right?
Yeah.
There is always resistance to change that what we are doing. And one of the biggest reasons for inertia is seeking perfection. The problem is, there can be no perfection. Like you said, in that moment, it's my best piece of work. But the
Yeah.
following morning, I'll definitely find a mistake. I mean, I'll
Yeah.
tell you, we were recording, my wife was assisting me yesterday, and we were recording this video for a club that I'm launching shortly. It was like a welcome video. And for the first time in my life, Jai, I kid you not, for the first time in my whatever 4 years of recording content, creating content, teaching for IELTS and English, I recorded a video in one take. It has
Wow.
never happened. You won't believe it. It was 4 minutes video. We did it in one take, and it wasn't even scripted. All right, it was straight on the top of my head. Yes, I had done some planning before I started speaking, and like the both of us, we were ecstatic. All right, my wife could not believe it because she usually helps me with setting up the cameras and starting the recording and everything, right? And she would finally, almost always give up. She'd be like, "My legs are hurting now. I got to go. I have work to do." And she was like, I can't believe it. And you won't believe it. We sat down and we started editing that video. And that moment we were like, and we played the video back and we were like, oh, perfect video. By the time we were done editing that video to finally release it, we had found some 40 mistakes. And this morning, when we sat down, we sat down again. Of course, we used the video. I'll tell you what, we used the video because we knew it that when we look at it again tomorrow morning, we will find those mistakes. But had we done that and had we not released the video, my work would have stopped.
True.
That is not good. Work has to continue. It'll keep getting better with each day. And people understand
True.
this. So never seek perfection. Never seek perfection. Learn to appreciate the mistakes and learn from them, but don't let the mistakes get in the way of you doing something.
100%. And I think that's the most important thing, even you think as a creator, because many people I have seen that they think, yeah, isme acha nahi hua, next video I'll record it again and I'll make it little better. Okay, that it will get better, no issues, but till you release that, you will only get to know the mistakes which you are finding by yourself. It's like you will just
True.
get mistakes from one perspective. If you release
Correct.
it, let your friends watch it. Your friends will tell, bro, here you can do something, here you can do something. You might feel little sad that कि यार ऐसा video release किया. But then when you see your third or fourth video and you compare it with your first, you will never say that this could be my fourth video. You will say that this is because I have recorded 40 times to be able to reach the level which I've reached on my fourth video.
Exactly. Exactly. So yeah, I totally agree with what you're saying here.
And talking about vocabulary, the problem which I personally faced in my school days and which
Yeah.
I am facing right now as well. Before when I see other podcasts, because being a podcaster, I like to hear podcasts as well. So when I see other people's podcasts, I feel that wow, the host is using such a good vocabulary. The impression what he's making is very nice compared to what I am doing. But the problem with me is, unless and until I use that word for more than 100 times consciously, I am unable to use it even while writing. That word doesn't hit me. So I have to put that word here, there, in under my vision to be able to get that word, to be able to get that word's meaning correctly. And that hinders my confidence many times. And I'm sure
Hmm.
many people who are watching this, they might be able to relate it with. Even your students whom you have taught might be able to relate it with. So what would be your suggestion to people like us?
See, one, I don't think you're doing anything wrong. Okay. What you're saying is the exact same scene with me as well. I'll tell you what the word cathartic, all right? I'll just take an example. I'm still not sure what it means. All right. But in the past 3 weeks, I've heard at least 10 people use it. I mean, I have an idea now. But But look, I'm still saying I'm not sure what it means, right? And I mean, I'm an English teacher. I'm supposed to know this. How can I not know this? No, absolute nonsense. I'm an English teacher doesn't mean I'm supposed to know every word, right? I'm effective. My communication is very effective. That's one thing I guarantee you. As an English teacher, you leave me in a position, I'll ensure my communication is always effective. So rather than trying to learn words independently, which are otherwise affecting your confidence, here's what I say. Stop worrying about your vocabulary. All right. Start thinking more about how can I be more effective in my communication. Now, what happens is, let's take the word. Okay, let me think of a good word here that can possibly present something challenging. Let's take the word satiate. All right, let's take the word satiate. I I satiate means to satisfy, kind of calm down, let's say hunger, or calm down your nerves, or your need or demand for something. To satiate something means to settle down the need or demand for something, right? Now, if I were to just give you the word satiate, you'd be like, okay, how do I use it? Where do I use it? What's the point of it, right? And now you're trying. That's exactly where you're caught. You need to look at it 100 times and try and understand exactly how it operates, and then you'll find the confidence of using it. Instead, if you come to think of it this way, you know what? I had to say a very long, I mean, I had to use a very long sentence to say that, you know what, finally, my tummy is full and I'm feeling happy and I'm satisfied, right? Instead of having to say this whole thing, what is it that I could have said that would have made it shorter, sweeter, and more effective? Now I feel satiated, or my hunger is now finally satiated. Now you were like, oh, all right. So this is the meaning of the word satiate, right? This is how I can probably use it. Maybe I'm using it a little wrong, but the contextual meaning is still correct, right? Maybe it's not the most accurate use, but yes, I can still use it the way I'm using it right now. It helps me, it makes it more effective. So whenever you try to learn a word with context, okay, like what situation am I to use it in, why am I supposed to use it, then is when you're able to pick up that word better, easier. Instead of doing that, what we have done for the longest time with the entrance exams, right? IELTS. Oh God, trust me, Jay, the number of people who come to me saying, sir, मेरी vocabularies अच्छी कर दो, sir, मेरी vocabs अच्छी कर दो. So one, it is not vocabularies. Two, it is not vocabs. Three, you can't just randomly improve it. All my students who actually improve the vocabulary are the ones who follow this, right? They don't sit down with a whole list of words which have been handed out to them by some instructor who says, you know what, memorize these words and use them on the IELTS test and you'll do well, right?
True.
These students of mine, they follow what I'm saying. They go like, I did not know what word to use here. I am lost. Now let's go learn a word for this. And then automatically they've retained that word. So don't try to unnecessarily enhance your vocabulary or learn new words. See why you need to learn a new word, and automatically you'll retain that word. Of course, there will still be a lot of words that you'll probably forget because you don't need to use them as much. But you will still retain a lot of those words, and eventually you'll get to that point where you'll be like, my vocabulary is indeed very good today. All right.
And as a student, I can identify problem why many people like me are facing such problems is because from childhood we have been taught word meaning or glossaries, say
Correct.
in our textbooks, where we have been told that okay, this is the word, this is the meaning, ratify it, write it in exam, you'll get 2 marks, you'll get 1 marks.
Exactly.
So that is the habit which we have developed through years and through our childhood. And then when someone says increase your vocabulary, instead of knowing the context, instead of knowing what it actually, when it is actually being used, we go back to those old days where it is like word, meaning, ratified, and you'll get it.
Exactly. I think a lot of people still use that book, Word Power Made Easy, right? I mean, till date, I have not been able to go from page one to page two of that book. Maybe it's a brilliant book. I'm not saying it's a good book or not, but the whole, like you said, the whole point of having that book was because you'll pick up Wait, ratta mara ulti kari, right? That is of no use. That is literally of no use. And you know what I hate about this is, Jay, you know, the I mean, this is okay. There's a personal opinion here, right? Maybe this is not this may not have a very important bearing. This may have no bearing on a person's score, but consider it this way. I know students who spend a year and a half, maybe even two preparing for IELTS, right? And they improve their English because, you know, they are memorizing everything. 2 years of effort, sir. 2 years. It's not a joke. 2 years of your life. You're sitting and working on a language. That minute the test gets over, they step out and they've forgotten everything. So imagine this 2 years of efforts, and then again in future, if they need to use the language again, they are standing nowhere. You know, this is exactly like me at maths. 9th standard, 10th standard, फॉर्मूला रटा, क्लास के अंदर उल्टी करी, पास हो गए तो हो गए, उसके बाद लाइफ में कभी इस्तेमाल नहीं किया. By God's grace, you know, a lot of those maths formulas in 9th and 10th are probably not needed by most of us in real life, in you know, in beyond our school. But that's not the case with language. Language is always needed. Language is always needed. So it's very disheartening to see a person work for a year or two on a language and then not retain anything. So if people would actually give up on that habit of memorizing endless lists of words and actually start learning it the right way, or trust me, language and communication will be a billion times better all over the planet.
100%, sir. And the basic thing which comes in communication and language is I mean, if we say that uh, the common visual which comes, like when I say communication, when I say language, when I say use of language, the basic visual which comes is you are standing in front of a crowd and you are speaking. And that's what. And but many people don't understand that communication is you talking with your friend, communication is you talking with your teacher, you talking with your parents, you talking with any human being. Like we are communicating, we are communicating. But what visual comes in people's mind is me giving an elocution.
Exactly.
And what according to you has been the reason behind it? When we say communication, when we say speaking, the reason behind this visual, according to me, is because we have made communication limited to oratory skills. Even in school, when we are talking to our friends, we talk in any language, we talk rubbish in terms of communication. Like आधा हिंदी आधा इंग्लिश बोलते हैं हम लोग as friends. When it comes to communication, the only point where even institute comes into play is when competition, elocution competition are there, or when you have to give speeches. Other time, even in front of teachers, when you're talking with teachers personally are using Hindi. Like they are teaching a sentence, they use Hindi in between and they go. Now, according to you, being as a teacher, how can you break that image that communication is not limited to the oratory skills or just speaking in front of crowd, and communication is what you talk with your teachers, what you talk with your friends? According to you, what changes should be needed?
See, what you are talking about here. See, first let's understand why this has happened. Right? Let's understand why this has happened. Dekho, in English is not our first language, right? I mean, I think there is a very small percentage of population in India for whom English is the first language, right?
True.
I think I'm one of those people, because when I was I think about a year old, and my father went like, "Dare you ever speak in Hindi?" I'm paying a lot of money towards. I must have been more like 2.5, probably not 1, maybe more like 3, right? And he's like, "I'm paying a lot of money for your private school, right? You better speak in English." So right from that day, no. The father was not that. He was not that cruel. He was not one of those people. But yeah, you know, very few people went to English medium schools right from play school. Right? That is where we start learning English. And majority of us went to Hindi medium or Marathi medium or Gujarati medium or Tamil or Bengali, right? Depending on whatever state we're coming from. And see, what happens is this whole aspect. So when we start speaking in English, and the term communication is introduced to people, what happens is people start thinking, right? Oh, acha, you need to learn to communicate in English. So people start thinking, so what am I doing right now in my local language? Am I not communicating? This is just talking, right? What is communicating? So, and then what happens is when you start learning English, so sorry, you start learning English because it will help you with your career growth,
True.
right? Now, how do you gain career growth? Let's look at that very stereotype. I mean, it's a fact of life, right? Career
True.
growth
True.
comes to those who are best at school in extracurricular activities. Career growth comes to those who top the class. Career growth comes to those people who have on their CVs not just their regular qualifications, but also endless other things to show in the interest section, right? So,
True.
and then on top of that, companies were like, oh, well, the most important thing is at the end of the day, do you have good communication skills? Right? And then you were like, how do I show I have great communication skills? Okay, look, you know what? When I was in my fifth standard, I actually delivered a speech to 20 people, and I
Hmm.
got a bronze award, right? Whatever award. And then company went like, oh, that is brilliant. So now everyone started thinking, okay, to show that I have good communication skills, I must, participate in 10 elocutions, 10 extemporaries, 10 debates. And that is how this whole image
True.
was created. Now, how do we break it? I think this lies on the teachers. The onus to do so lies with the teachers more than the student themselves. Student at the end of the day is learning from the teacher, right? When I speak with my students and I say, look, you need to be good at communication. So the exact same thing, right? Students come to me, they were like, but no, I've never been good at communication. I'm like, but you're doing this so well with me right now. And
True.
they were like, huh? I'm like, yeah, you've been able to tell me very clearly what university you want to go study at. You've been able to tell me very clearly why are you taking the IELTS test? What is your targeted band score? What is your target band score? What have you done in the past? What is your training like? You've been very clear. Your communication skills are clear. Oh, is that what it means by communication skills? I'm like, yes, that is what it means to have good communication skills. It simply means that you should be able to convey that what you want to say to another person clearly. That is the very basis of communication, right? That is the whole idea behind communication. And then, of course, there are multiple ways to communicate. One is a one-on-one communication, the other is a public speaking setup, or writing. There are so many ways to communicate. So I think this is something that teachers will have to tackle. Teachers need to explain it to students that communication is not just about bringing your A game when you have a mic in front of you. When you have a mic in front of you, might as well bring your A game, because why not? Why not? There's a mic
Yeah.
in front of you. There are 100 people listening to you. Impress, razzle, dazzle, delight, like I always say. But even otherwise, when there's no mic in front of you, bring your A game. And again, it's the teachers who need to do this.
True. 100%. And talking about one-on-one conversation, many people I have seen that they have very what can I say, that they have very they have a mentality where they are like keep one-on-one conversation, like if I'm talking to you as a friend and you correct me somewhere, I'm like
Hmm.
chalta hai, one-on-one
Hmm.
conversation mein chalta hai. I simply ignore it and move on. Now, how much of importance does that correction stands, even if I want to, suppose my native language is English and I'm communicating you in English, you correct me that Jay, you can use this word here, or you could have used your sentence in this way, and I would
Right.
simply be that ha chalta hai, it's okay. And then when I have to talk, when I have to talk in English to, let's say, in an interview, or to a professional, and there I tend to do same mistakes.
Correct.
Sorry. and the person easily catches it, and the impression of mind goes down. So how important is to be able to rectify those mistakes, and how can one rectify that?
All right. So look, it is very important to rectify those mistakes without a doubt, right? And here's what I say: take your friends seriously, not just when you're in a fight, even otherwise, right? So I tell you what, I was very lucky to have a set of friends around me who were very good at English. In fact, I tell you what, most of my friends around me are better than me at English. Not most, nah. Okay, I'm lying when I say most. Some of them, all right? I can actually name these guys, right? Bharat, Manu, Karan Lal, and Ankur Sharma. These are some of my friends who are very good at English. Right? Now, don't go all over what a chauvinist, no woman's name on there. Right? Please don't play that card with me. Yes, there were some girls as well, but then they were not better than me. They were as good as I was or I am. Right? So now I tell you what, these guys always had better vocabulary than me, had better understanding of the language than me, and yes, they would correct me all the time. They would correct me all the time. And I always, yes, as a kid, even my ego got hurt. I'm like, what nonsense, yeah. Here I am trying to make an impression, especially when there would be a girl around. I'm trying to make an impression, and these guys would walk in and they're like, "Hey, तूने ये गलती किया रे?" I'm like, "हैं? अभी तेरे को बोलने का था क्या?" But nonetheless, I would make a note of it. Yes, I would make a note of it. It is important to make a note of it. I'll give you an example. You've heard of the word berserk, berserk, right? That there are multiple ways to pronounce the word. So that's another big problem, right? I face these pronunciation trolls on Instagram all the time. I'm like, damsel, kuch bhi bolo, both are correct. There are different ways, different people say the same word. Learn to live with it. Don't start trolling people for it. Anyways, coming back to the point. Now, there are words, there are pronunciations which are indeed wrong, right? So, for example, beresk is an incorrect pronunciation altogether for the word berserk. But that is what I used to say. Okay, I was first trying to impress. I was at college. I was trying to impress a girl. Like, I'm like, this is best. This is beresk. And she's looking at me like, what? And then my friend was like, "Oi, beresk nahi hota, berserk hota hai." Now, of course, the girl walked away, right? But that day I learned a word, right? Yes, my ego was hurt. Yes, I came back to my hostel and I almost broke my friend's head with the first thing that came in my head. But I did make a record of that, and now I never get the word wrong. Achha, another thing that happens is, of course, because this happened in a very different situation, so I'll always remember it, right? I mean, there's
True.
the embarrassment associated with the word will ensure that I remember it forever. But that being said, uh, take your friends seriously. This is how you learn. It's not learning is not textbook. In fact, that is one of the most boring ways to learn. It is one of the most boring ways to learn. I'll give you a real life example. Yes, from my own life, right? I mean, हम ना बहुत ही आलसी होते थे कॉलेज में बड़े आलसी होते थे टिपिकल कॉलेज स्टूडेंट ना एग्जाम आ गया पढ़ा है नहीं टेस्ट कल सुबह है पास तो करना है फेल हो गए तो फादर ने घर पे जूते मारने हैं मदर ने तो मतलब घर से ही निकाल देना है तो I mean, my mom and dad, they both come from they're not educators themselves, but वो पूरी family में हमारे ना education was a very massive thing. तो पास तो होना ही होना है. आप fail हो गए तो मतलब fail हो गए. यार इस घर का लड़का fail हो गया, इस घर की लड़की fail हो गई, मतलब ये तो हो ही नहीं सकता, So वो pressure हमेशा होता था. So I mean, I was on the merit list of my college for 2 years. Would you believe it? मैं मतलब college में पढ़ता था मैं. I was one of those people, right? पढ़ना पड़ता था. But कैसे पढ़ूं? आलसी, राइट? सीरियसली आलसी. तो हम क्या करते थे? हम 6-7 जने इकट्ठे हो जाते थे रूम में. We would gather in a room and we would take a textbook and we would split it into pieces. All right? Chapter 1 तेरा, Chapter 2 तेरा, Chapter 3 तेरा, Chapter 4 तेरा, Chapter 5 तेरा, Chapter 6 मेरा, Chapter 7 तेरा, 8, 9, 10 इस तरीके से 10 चैप्टर हमने आपस में बांट दिए. सबके पास 2-2 घंटे. सबके पास 2-2 घंटे. तू चैप्टर 1 डिटेल में पढ़ेगा, तू चैप्टर 2 डिटेल में पढ़ेगा. सब कर लिया. अब वापस आए, एक दूसरे को सारे चैप्टर समझा दिए. अच्छा हाँ, अब ये भी है कि this did not work out very well the first time. Almost all of us failed our exam. But with each attempt, we kept getting better at it. And by the end of it, most of us were like, on the merit list. So it definitely did work out really well. So take your friends seriously because they too are learning, right? And
Hmm.
वो आपके पास जो information लेके आ रहे हैं, it's not necessarily wrong. So make the most of it, make a note of it. And next time when you are about to use it, your brain, you know what? It's a masterpiece. वो सही टाइम पे ना उस बात को ले आएगा. देख तू गलती करने वाले रुक जा. This is the right information, and you will automatically make that correction and
True.
use it correctly.
100%. Now coming on to language part, where
Mm-hmm.
nowadays, when being on internet, I have seen and many internet experts say that the trend of regional language is going to come because more and more users are going to come on the platform and they'll be easily able to relate things when things are being converted in native language. And on the other hand, in schools, we were taught that English, no Hindi,
Hmm.
no native language. आपको English ही बोलना है, English ही बोलना है. English is the way where you can scope yourself. So being an IELTS teacher, where you see many students are uh, giving exams to go abroad, and because being an IELTS teacher, you know the importance of English in global on global
Correct.
scale. But on the other
Right.
hand, you are also a content creator, and you know that the native language is the next trend. So, according to you, how can one get a perfect balance where they want to be a content creator, they want to go global, as well as they want to penetrate deep inside the native culture? So, how can one get a balance between both the language?
All right. So, okay. First of all, don't try to do both. That's a bad business strategy.
Okay. Okay.
Okay, that's a bad business strategy. Uh, and as a content creator, if you really want to do both, create two separate channels. Okay, that was free business advice. इसका मैं बहुत पैसा लेता हूँ. ठीक है, but चलो कोई नहीं. आज ऐसे ही सही. कभी. So, but let's say you want to do it on the same channel. You want to. Uh, well, I'll have to think this through. I really don't have a good answer for this. I would personally not do it at all, to be very honest with you. And
Okay, then let's go to
yeah,
the
actually,
relevance of English language when the importance of native language will rise, because according to the new education policy, native languages are getting a big support.
which
So
is brilliant.
now now when you see in schools native languages are also taught, and will you still say that the relevance of English will still be there, or the importance of English will still be there, or it will come down to a certain level because native languages are
Okay.
growing?
See, I'll tell you one thing, Jay. No, it will not happen that way. And another thing, what ये जो relevance of a language हम बात करते हैं ना, जिस तरीके से the way
Mm-hmm.
we look at it, and the way it actually works are very different. हम
Okay.
इसको इस तरीके से देख रहे हैं कि भाई language, हम English India में majority of us we learn English purely because it is a career it opens up career options.
Hmm.
Now the
True.
government is not thinking on those lines कि अरे English ही पढ़ा देते because उससे ज़्यादा jobs मिलेंगी, right? What it
Hmm.
has actually done is it has created a market which is not very efficient, right? On the contrary, जो पुराना ये जो concept चला आ रहा था ना, English पढ़नी पड़ेगी आगे
Hmm.
बढ़ने के
Hmm.
चक्कर में. अब उसमें क्या होने लगा? See, I'll tell you for a fact. I started noticing that a lot of people who could otherwise not do a lot, who are not very efficient, who are not very effective. Unluckily, I worked with some of them, but they knew their English very well, started going up the ladder,
Wow.
right? because they could jazz around. I mean, jazz is not the right word. The other word is the A gets replaced with a different letter. But I'm on your podcast, so I'm going to avoid it altogether. So, but so that what I did was the actual talent, the people who could deliver that what was needed were being left behind. Now, this new education policy, which is pushing for regional languages, is actually brilliant. What it will do is it will allow for a person to be more efficient in their own language, right, which they understand and use more often, right? And within that, they'll be able to build an excellent communication capability within themselves, right? And regionally, they'll be able to operate a lot better. Now, but does that mean it'll affect the importance of English? No, it won't. See, the moment you go from regional to, let's say, even uh, interstate, English starts becoming relevant. Now, let's take the example of Tamil Nadu and Bengal, two regions where Hindi is not spoken or very rarely spoken. But when people between these two states would like to speak with each other, what do? So they find English. Now, why is it that English picked up? Now, of course, our colonial heritage, right? That is why English. But also at the same time, English is a very easy language to learn. Okay. Yes. Now, please don't misconstrue my statement. All right. It is an easy language to learn in the sense that it is easy to pick up the language and start using it. But if you want to improve yourself and get to the top, again, it needs as much effort as any other language. Right? The reason why English can be picked up easier is because the grammar rules are a lot more. So the grammar rules are a lot more. They're a lot less as compared to any other language. You pick up Hindi, there are so many rules to learn, right? When you're trying to learn your I'll be very honest. I stopped learning Hindi in 7th standard. My Hindi teacher literally said, "Baba, isko leke jao, warna ye 7th में रह जाएगा. इसको पास करा देती हूँ मैं एग्जाम, 8th में इसको हिंदी मत लेने देना, ये जिंदगी में आगे नहीं बढ़ पाएगा." Right? So the tenses, right? The tenses in Hindi. There are so many rules. I was the other day I was watching this meme. I was looking at this meme on Instagram, I think. Or I don't remember the number of rules for tenses that German has, that Hindi has, that Sanskrit has. Oh God, like a person would just, they'd rather give up than learn all of those rules, right? Yes, of course, these languages are technically better once you've learned them. But the thing is, communication is not about, you can't go like, oh, you know what, let me first go learn Sanskrit. And then once I've learned, and then I'll come back and I'll apply for this job. Right? English, on the other hand, very quickly you can start learning and start using it, which is why English became so popular. Right? English, see, tell me, the Portuguese tried to conquer the world. The Dutch tried to conquer the world. Well, the French thought that they tried to conquer the world. All right. And I shouldn't say that. I was a French teacher, right? So I'm supposed to uphold the French culture. No, I'm not. Of course not. I'm kidding. The Germans tried to conquer the world, but it was the British who had the biggest empire. The reason, their language was such that they could very quickly teach it to the locals. And at the same time, the locals could also pick it up very quickly. So there was the very quick communication channel which was opened up. Very quick, right? And that is, see, of course, when you're trying to conquer a country and there are two other people who are also coming behind you with their own armadas, speed is of importance, right? And that is where English became successful. So likewise, however, even though people will be getting better in the regional languages, the moment they want to open themselves up to global communication, or forget global, even within multiple regions within their nation. So in India, like I said, people will probably fall back to English. That being said, yes, I hope for this. I genuinely hope for this. That maybe 10 years down the line, it will no longer be necessary to know English to be at a managerial role in a regional organization. Right? I genuinely hope for that. Talent will count more.
True. So according to you, the the backing up of regional languages will remove the filter of just knowing the English language
Huh,
in terms of growing in terms of career and going to a managerial position.
correct.
Okay, that's a new perspective today which I got to learn.
Yes, yes, yes. And also not just, see, that is career, that is one example. But even otherwise, regionally, okay, I've recently moved from Ahmedabad to Baroda, right? Within Gujarat, if you like the dialects in Gujarati, dialect in Gujarati keeps changing about every 60 to 70 kilometers, right? Baroda has a very
True,
different dialect and Ahmedabad has a very different dialect.
true, true.
I find it a lot easier to speak in Gujarati in Baroda, right, than I would find it in Ahmedabad. And if I were to move towards Rajkot, I'd probably not be able to speak with them in Gujarati at all. And if I go to Kutch, they don't speak. I mean, the language in Kutch, although it's a derivative of Gujarati, it's called Kutchi, right?
Hmm.
So I mean, out there, I'd be like a fish out of water if I were to try and speak in their regional language. Surti speak a very different English. So now what will happen is, what we're looking at is, once we have more people learning the same language within a region as well, right, the dialects may get affected again, right, no doubt about it, but your regional development will be better, because let's say somebody from let's say all of Gujarat has now been trained in Gujarati, similar Gujarati, and there is now people are able to effectively communicate with each other because they already are comfortable in Gujarati, but now they know it really well. So tomorrow, let's
Hmm.
say uh, somebody has developed a new block development program for, let's say, infrastructure in education,
Hmm.
right? Now, this person knows very well how to communicate their ideas in Gujarati because they've been trained accordingly, right? I'll tell you what, I mean, despite the fact that I was brought up in Gujarat, I last learned Gujarati in 7th standard. All right.
I did in
I
eighth.
quit.
Eighth was my
You
last.
you was your last, right? So abhi dekho. So actually, you were also taught in a Gujarati, like you were taught in Gujarat.
Yeah, yeah. I currently live in Ahmedabad. I was born in Baroda,
Oh,
lived 3 years in Surat, and then
ah,
I came to Ahmedabad.
so you know exactly what I'm saying, right? You know exactly what I'm
I can
saying. Oh, okay,
completely
okay, okay.
relate.
I didn't need to explain the whole Kachi part and everything to you. Okay, I'm sorry. All right. So now what will happen is, let's say somebody has created that block development, that program, right? Now when that person takes it to that region and starts speaking to the locals about it, they will understand it better. Otherwise, what would have happened is, देखो एक बात समझो, somebody who's learned Gujarati till 5th and somebody who's learned Gujarati till 12th, their ability to
Hmm.
use the language will be very different,
True.
right? You
100%.
agree with me, right? So
True.
automatically, now that person who's not learned Gujarati now, and usually what happens is, people who want to take on these officers positions, and they probably not learned Gujarati all the way till the end, right? They
Hmm.
probably get learned Gujarati till 7th or 8th or 10th, right? वहां पे भी 11th 12th में आके फाइनली पेरेंट्स उनको निकाल के, बेटा तू डीपीएस जा, राइट? अहमदाबाद में तो डीपीएस somehow उसको डीपीएस या उदगम या उधर भेजना ही होता है, राइट?
True.
तो वो खैर चलो वो, but so now with more people learning the regional language, with more parity in terms of understanding that language, I feel that those areas will develop better, right?
Hmm.
ये नहीं रह जाएगा that, oh, people, that the person who's trying to implement something and the person who actually needs to implement it on the ground have a communication gap, because both of them can't speak the same language, or they can't speak the same language to the same efficiency, so that, or proficiency, right? So that, I think that barrier will be broken.
And also, I have personally seen many of my friends who have learned in Gujarati medium till 10th, and they forcibly have to go and learn English in 11th and 12th just to be able to get admission in good college. So I think even
Exactly.
that educational barrier will also break when regional languages will get their back.
True. Yes, I think that's an unnecessary barrier. Why should a person not be able to? I mean, I still don't understand, why should a person? Okay, I understand there are certain professions, like let's say medicine, right? Because, okay, fine, the person needs to know some level of English, and they do, right? But I
Hmm.
still don't understand, why would a person who wants to, let's say, pursue a career in chemistry, Why should they not? And especially when they're going to stay limited to their regional area, why should they not be able to go ahead and study chemistry in Gujarati or Tamil or Punjabi? I think there are a lot of courses. I'm not saying that they're not there. I think there are a lot of colleges which will offer you these options, but they're limited. And then and if they're limited, that means fewer number of students can actually make it to those courses. And then they're struggling. Then they're trying to settle into some course which will probably, not uh, make a lot of sense for them, which will probably not let them succeed. Now, again, look, my understanding of NEP comes with very limited research into the whole thing. So I'm not sure if everything that I'm saying will actually happen or not, right? But I hope this will happen. So yeah.
From what I have gone through NEP, it is just what we can say. It is just what it is just a roadmap. I mean, and not roadmap. There's no direction to it that how things are going to happen. It's just that you have been told that this is the ultimate goal which we are trying to reach. So there's no roadmap to it that how things are going to happen and how much they'll be able to reach in terms of depth, in terms of getting to the population.
Right, fair enough. So I think what, I'll actually sit down and read the whole thing, because I've all my reading is limited to whatever Google News shows me when the so I think I need to do a little more research. But yes, the whole regional language thing was, yes, well read by me. I think I'm going to sit down and read the rest of it as well. I think it's important. I think it's important. Pretty much everyone should, especially in the education field. I think we all need to know this.
100%. And me and I have entered I'm in first year of college, and my college is in Dehradun. So in terms of English, because I was kept in CBSE school from my first grade, I was able to communicate well in English, and because of that, now when I'm changing my state, when I'm going from Gujarat to Dehradun to study there, uh, the basic communication more than Hindi was English. I was able to communicate well in English rather than Hindi because uh, there the, the accent problem is also there. Like in British and
It is
America, there's a
fine.
difference in accent.
Arey.
I mean, no. What I'm telling is because their language is different, the
Mhm.
words which they get in their language, they are more near to English than in Hindi. So when they speak Hindi, I have to listen twice to be able to understand what they are trying to say. And if I communicate them in English, it is far more easier for me to understand. Because of the native
True.
language, the accent of other language also affects. Like even in Gujarati, when we the native people are, there are very less people who say school. Many people just say
Ah,
school.
it's
School.
cool. Yeah,
So even
yeah.
the effect of native
Jay,
language.
I think as Gujaratis, I think we can give the most famous example, hall and hole, right?
Ha, ha,
What
ha,
people
true.
think is hall, we think is whole, and what people think is whole, we think is hall, right? So,
True, true.
so yeah. But yeah, you're right, right. The way we pronounce our words, it does have a very massive effect on how people are able to understand what you're saying. But but then that's not an accent issue. That's more of a pronunciation issue, right? Let's not mix up the two things.
Yeah.
Accent is how you. Uh, okay, how do I explain the difference? Even I don't know the technical difference. I need to get somebody who's a PhD in linguistics probably to explain this. Not a PhD, probably somebody who's done the BA or maybe an MA in this. They'd be able to explain this better. But pronunciation and so you see pronunciations. Accents will differ from region to region, right? And yes, the accent has a bearing on the pronunciation, and yes, the pronunciation also has a bearing on the accent. But this should not really be much of an issue. See, if you get your overall, if your language is correct, right? This is what I always say: if your grammar is correct, work on your
Hmm.
grammar. If your grammar is correct, you'll still be able to understand what the other person is saying, and the other person will be able to understand what you are saying. Have you heard the Scottish speak?
No.
No. Okay, so I'll tell you what, I studied in England for a couple of years. Forget the Scottish. Scottish are still, you can understand what the Scottish are saying. Have you ever spoken to a drunk man from Manchester? No. Do you follow football? No, not really. Okay, I was hoping you're a Manchester United fan. Nonetheless, all right. So you know what? I used to travel to Manchester. My uncle lives in Manchester, and he was a Manchester United, the Old Trafford member. He was a member of the club, and we would go there to watch matches. And there is a big difference between watching sports in India and in UK. In India,
Mm-hmm.
you can't take a can of beer into your
Uh-huh.
the seats, the
True.
stand, right? But in UK, everyone's getting drunk. They have pubs and sorry, they have bars and pubs inside. They have pubs
Mm.
inside the stadium, right? Every major stand has its own bar, right? And um, a drunk Mancunian is the most difficult person to understand on this planet, right? But but see, a drunk Mancunian who knows his grammar well will still make sense. And and there's a big difference between a drunk Mancunian's accent and a drunk Indian's accent. All right. I mean,
Mm.
of course, I was drunk as well all the time, right? So, but the communication breakdown happens when the grammar is all haywire. Otherwise, of course, the emotions help you in communicating, right? When Manchester United has scored a goal, you've hit one back at Chelsea after Chelsea has had a vociferous celebration. Yes, we understand each other's emotion already pretty well, but if the grammar was in place, we understood each other better. So don't worry so much about accent. It's okay if your pronunciations are wrong. It's okay if your vocabulary is limited. If overall the structure of what you're saying is clear, the other person will be able to understand you well, and vice versa. Right? So that is what you should always focus on.
So if I was to boil down what you said in a more layman terms, is like grammar helps you in specifying to of what you exactly want to say. Good grammar can help you in specifying exactly what you want to say, rather than having good vocabulary or having a perfect accent, or having a perfect pronunciation.
Yes. I mean, look, I'm not saying vocabulary is not important, all right? What I'm saying is you don't need fancy vocabulary.
Mm.
All right. If you say I'm happy, it's equally good. Whether you say I'm happy or I'm elated, arey, I'm happy is as good as I'm elated. I'm
True.
angry, I'm infuriated. Doesn't matter. All right. Angry, I
True.
am. Okay, chalo, if you're Yoda, right, from Star Wars, go ahead, say angry, I am. Right. The world will be like, okay, they'll probably stand up and they'll be like, we finally have Yoda amongst us. But otherwise, if I mean, okay, that's a very easy example. But if you do not know how to structure your sentence, if you do not know what word should come when, your vocabulary could be
Mm.
the most amazing vocabulary and it will still not make any sense to the other person. All right. So
True.
do you know the word highfalutin? Okay, so it's a word which is used. It's pretentious. This is something that a cousin of mine taught me. Yeah. So we don't need to have highfalutin vocabulary for the. Now, I mean, I don't know. I think it's an adjective. I'm also not 100% sure about whether it's a noun or it's. I think it's an adjective. Pretentious, right? It has to be an adjective. So there are a lot of people who will use big fancy words, and this is what I say. These are pretentious people. They are highfalutin. I think highfalutin. Nee, is it a verb or is it? Anyways, forget it. Right? So the point is, people are just being pretentious when they're trying to. And what happens with pretentious people? They fall apart,
Hmm.
right? Very quickly. The moment there is an
And
actual
they also
challenge where you need
lose
to.
their confidence in between.
Exactly. And the problem is when you lose you lose your, when you lose your footing in a position where you're trying to otherwise keep you're trying to pretend so that your ego doesn't get hurt or you don't feel embarrassed.
Hmm.
When something goes wrong in that situation, your confidence takes a massive knock. And it becomes very
True.
difficult to recover from that.
True.
I think,
100%.
and we are all guilty of doing it. We've all tried to be pretentious in some situation or the other. Right? We've all
True.
tried it, and we all know what I'm talking about, what you're talking about. Right? I'm sure we'll all agree. It's not, if not for language, somewhere else. So
Hmm.
instead of trying to have big fancy words, instead of saying I'm famished, I'm hungry, Baba. तो पता चलेगा सामने वाले को आपने बोला आई एम फैमिश्ड, वो बोलेगा ये कौन सा नया अदर गाय बोलते हैं ये कौन सा नया दाना वाया भैया, इसका सर काट के इसको इधर से बाहर निकालो, राइट? ये रावण के 10 सर लेके तो नहीं आ गया, फैमिश्ड कौन है भाई, यू नो? I am hungry. Family, oh, let me get you. Probably the other person will get you the best possible food they have in their house. For all you know, you might suddenly get pizza, right? So you're trying to go like, I'm famished, and the person throws you out of the house, and you go like, I'm hungry, and you get served probably the best margarita in your life. So stick to hungry, right? And always, another thing, when choosing your words, always pay attention to who are you speaking with. Right?
True.
Now, I'll tell you something very interesting, Jay. Did you notice I said, who are you speaking with? I did not say, who are you speaking to? Did you notice that? Right? In India, we always say, who are you speaking to? Now, to speak to somebody means to basically give them a talking to.
Right? Yeah, it puts you on a pedestal as a speaker and the other person as an audience.
Correct. Exactly. Now, this is something I did not know. When I went to UK and I said, look, you know what, I think I'll speak to my group mates. My professor went like, why would you need to speak to them? And then I realized, the emphasis was laid on the word to. And I'm like, is there something wrong with it? He's like, oh, okay, seems you don't know the rule. So he explained it to me. I'm like, oh, okay, fair enough. No? Now, since then, see, smaller things. This is what makes a language more effective. This is what makes it more rounded, well-rounded, more efficient, and in fact, when you know these smaller rules better, you go like, okay, I didn't need any, maybe I'll stop focusing on that.
And that to and with thing also, like if you know that you're talking to a person who has good grab on English, and when you're able to understand the difference between this to and with, you can also know that what kind of person this is. Like if every time a person is saying to, you may know that okay, he's little self-centered or a little egoistic rather than the person using with. Like I know that you have good grab on English, and still if you use to, then I can easily able to crack that okay, you are more me type person rather than connecting with everyone. Right?
Correct. Absolutely. Yes, of course, language always gives you a great idea about what kind of a person this person is that you're speaking with, right? It always has a major bearing on that. I mean, I said it right at the beginning itself, right? I'm going to come across as a narcissist, and then I gave you that example, right? So yeah, that's all. But as I was saying, whenever choosing your words, always pay attention to who you're speaking with, because consider there's somebody who's had very limited training in English, and you start using the most fancy vocabulary. In their opinion, that's fancy vocabulary. Either they'll walk away, or they'll just shake their head, and then you'll have to come back again. And then eventually you'll be like, oh God, I can't say this again. Right? So, हमेशा वही है, vocabulary पे कम ध्यान दो. मतलब देखो, vocabulary सीखो. A lot of people misconstrue or misunderstand when I say that, oh, don't focus on vocabulary. When I say vocabulary is not the most important thing. उनको लगता है अच्छा vocabulary सीखने की जरूरत ही नहीं है. नहीं. That's not
vocabulary is in top 5, but it is not the number 1.
It's not the number 1. Exactly. Perfectly put, Jay. Perfectly put.
Because even when if I say in terms of podcasting, think that even as a host, I need to understand what the other person is saying. Now, if my vocabulary is not that good, I won't be able to understand what other person is saying. I have to guess in terms of where are they using the word and in terms of their body language.
Correct.
So even for me, as a host who is just speaking around 20% of the whole podcast, like a major part is me listening. Now I can easily say to other person that mera kaam to sunna hai, so I don't need to have good vocabulary. But in communication, even the listener need to know vocabulary
absolutely,
to be able to understand what other person is saying. Like if I don't know few words which is said, then I won't be able to frame question around it. I just have to go through the set questions which I've set, and then the podcast we planned of 1 hour, it won't have exceeded to more
Has
than
it?
1 hour,
Have I done it
which we
again?
have right now.
Oh my God. Why am I never able to finish anything on time? I'm infamous. I'm infamous amongst the students. So I conduct this workshop, right? For IELTS. So it's like a crash course sort of a thing. And I say I'm going to finish my class in 2 hours. That's usually what I say. बट मैं डे वन पे ही वार्निंग दे देता हूँ मैं देखो मैं बोल तो रहा हूँ 2 घंटे उसके आगे मैं कभी कुछ नहीं बोलता people automatically by the end of that session they realize अच्छा ये कह तो रहा है 2 घंटे कुर्सी कंफर्टेबल चूज करके बैठना
but that also says that the person which you're communicating with or the teacher which is teaching you has that friendly connection that you can exceed the time. It's okay.
Yeah. I
Because
agree.
even as podcasts, I have seen people who are very specific about that time, that they don't give importance in terms of that the other person is able to understand what I'm speaking or to be able to groom that friendly vibe. They just come, answer the question and go. That's what general school teachers do. Now then, there are other guests on my podcast where they just get that vibe. They create that atmosphere. Even though we are virtually connected, they create that atmosphere that एक घंटा कम लगता है, एक ही घंटा बात हुई. We could have talked more. We could have talked more. Right?
Yeah. I'm glad to know. I'm glad to know that I'm assuming here that I'm also falling in that same league, right?
Yeah, you are in that second league where we can talk more.
Brilliant. I'm happy to hear that. And you know what, Jay? We started off talking about communication, right? See, this is also communication.
True.
This is communication. जहां आप एक दूसरे से आप where you're able to make that connection in every which way, right? In every which way, body language, empathy, language, eye movements. I mean, come on. A lot of people don't take like they're sitting hoity-toity position, like and then the eyes are always rolling when the other person is speaking, and then you're like, okay, how do I communicate with this person? But of course, it's always and I think there's I think as a teacher, it is. I think it is very important that a teacher should be able to do this. Look, I'm not saying that I do this every time. I have classes where I do definitely probably let down my students, right? आज के दिन में thanks to internet, I think हम सबको मालूम है सोलर सिस्टम में 9 नहीं अब तो 8 planets रह गए बेचारे. Pluto, I feel bad for Pluto, right? But 8 planets हैं, right? एक sun है, हमारा moon है. अब तो भगवान जाने जुपिटर के कितने मून है और नेपट्यून तो कहीं पहुंच चुका है. गॉड ओनली नोज. आई थिंक 83 recorded moons for Neptune now, or is it more now? I don't know. Anyways, so I think it's gone up to 92 or something like that now. So anyways,
I'm feeling ashamed being a physics student.
अरे ये तो एस्ट्रोनॉमी फिजिक्स. अरे ये तो एस्ट्रोनॉमी है ना. उससे वाई फील अशेम्ड. मैं यूट्यूब पे बैठे बैठे सारे दिन यही देखता हूँ. आई थिंक रात को माय वाइफ इज लाइक नाउ शी इज लाइक अरे तुमने अगर एक और बार अभी एस्ट्रोनॉमी का कोई वीडियो लगाया ना तो आई एम गोइंग टू थ्रो यू आउट ऑफ द हाउस. सो बट एनीवे, सो दिस इंफॉर्मेशन कैन बी इजीली पिक्ड अप ऑफ द इंटरनेट. आज के दिन में एक सेंटेंस अगर मैंने सिंपल टेंस में सेंटेंस बनाना है तो इंटरनेट पे जाओ, यूट्यूब पे जाओ, मुफ्त में वीडियो मिल जाएगा. बट हियर्स द फनी थिंग, मेरे पास बहुत लोग आते हैं, देखो लाइक आप फीस क्यों चार्ज करते हो, एजुकेशन शुड बी फ्री एंड यूट्यूब पे सब फ्री में मिलता है. मैंने कहा हाँ भाई मिलता है, एंड इट्स ट्रू. यूट्यूब पे सब फ्री में मिलता है, एंड येट यू आर नॉट एबल टू लर्न इट. व्हाई? बिकॉज दैट पर्सन हैज नॉट बीन एबल टू, दैट पर्सन हैज क्रिएटेड अ जेनेरिक वीडियो and uploaded it to YouTube without being able to see whether they can't even do it. It's not possible. Let's say a video receives 1 million views, that is 1 million individuals probably. We all know it's not like that, but chalo theek hai, probably 1 million individuals. Now you can't adapt to a million individuals, right? So which is why aap wahan pe wo learning ho hi nahi sakta.
You cannot get it personalized.
Exactly. And वो जो टीचर होते हैं, I think it is, which is why I'm saying it is important that a teacher should be able to make that connect with their student. It is then that the student learns the best. अब मैं अगर यही चीज लेके दूसरे स्टूडेंट के साथ भी चला जाऊं It's not going to work. Right? So, yeah, that's
100%. So it's like, if when many people have that question that what is the marking system if I want to mark myself in terms of the level of communication which I have. So from all this our total conversation, like, what I can say is, if you are able to remove the filter of you being the speaker and the other person being audience, if you're able to remove that filter and come down to the level of friends,
correct.
then that is the point where you can say that this was one of your best shot in terms of communication.
It is. It is. Yes. The moment. Okay. So friends may not necessarily be the best possible word here. It's where two people where you are not. मतलब आपने अपने ऊपर से label हटा दिया and you are two humans trying to understand each other. Right now, be it as friends, be it as relatives, be it as husband spouses, right? Be it as father and son, or mother and daughter, or mother and son, father and daughter, right? Whatever. आप वो, हाँ, करेक्ट, जब आप वो एक बार फिल्टर हटा दो कि मैंने एज अ स्पीकर, यू आर एब्सोल्युटली राइट, आई टोटली एग्री विद यू कि एज अ स्पीकर आई हैव टू डिलीवर एवरीथिंग, राइट? नहीं, as a communicator I should be able to express and also understand, and that is when, yes, communication becomes great. And for that to happen, there are a lot of
And
things
I think
involved,
that
language
that's
being
what
one
you
of them.
said in teaching field as well. Like, when we are watching a video, we are just getting a one way talk. Now,
Correct.
as a teacher, when you can say as you are a good teacher, only when you are able to remove the filter of you being a teacher and the other person being a student, and boil down to level of you teaching other human being, or you are
It,
helping other human being to be
correct.
to be very
करेक्ट,
specific.
जहां आप दो जने आप दो इंसान बन गए हो,
I mean,
बस, बाकी
when
सारे लेबल ड्रॉप हो गए.
when your conversation boils down to the level of to the same level of understanding and delivery.
करेक्ट, करेक्ट, एब्सोल्युटली, एब्सोल्युटली. वही बात है ना, दो वहां सही बात है भाई, तो बिल्कुल 100%. अगर अब आप, वो क्यों होता है जब कभी स्कूल में देखा है, सडनली बेचारी एक सीनियर स्कूल की टीचर को प्राइमरी स्कूल भेज दिया जाता है, या प्राइमरी
Hmm.
स्कूल की टीचर को सीनियर स्कूल भेज दिया जाता है, एंड दे आर लाइक दिस स्ट्रगल बिकॉज फॉर देम दे हैव टू नाउ सडनली चेंज, स्पेशली सीनियर स्कूल की टीचर को प्राइमरी स्कूल में आके, बिकॉज नाउ
Hmm.
दे हैव टू फॉरगेट एवरीथिंग, राइट? वो वहां पे मेरे साथ होता था, आई टेल यू. सो दिस हैपेंड विद मी, एंड आई स्वेयर इफ my math teacher will hear this, she'll be like, yes, Manil is absolutely right. वो ना क्लास में आती थी, she'll be like, apply Pythagoras theorem, do this, apply. And मैं ना वही देखता था. So I was one of those unlucky people. And a lot of Maharashtra board students are going to curse me now. So I was studying at Gujarat board till 7th.
Hmm.
So Gujarat board is, let's say, 0 in terms of level. In 8th, my parents put me, because we moved to Mumbai for a year. मेरे parents ने मुझे एक Maharashtra board school में डाला. So Maharashtra board is -10. अभी अबाउट यूर अबाउट टू, मतलब बहुत मेरे को अभी बहुत ट्रोलिंग होने वाला है यार, बट इट्स अ फैक्ट. आई एम नॉट सेइंग महाराष्ट्र बोर्ड इज बैड, बट क्या है, महाराष्ट्र बोर्ड का जो करिकुलम है, आई थिंक टिल 10th स्टैंडर्ड इट्स अ लॉट इजी, मतलब वो इतना ज्यादा कंटेंट नहीं है, एंड 11th एंड 12th में दे कैच अप अ लॉट, दे स्टार्ट कैचिंग अप अ लॉट मोर, राइट? बिकॉज़ वो जूनियर कॉलेज सिस्टम में चले जाते हैं, तो ऑफकोर्स उनका सिस्टम टीचिंग अलग हो जाता है. तो बट आई थिंक इट्स अ बेटर सिस्टम, आई थिंक इट्स अ बेटर सिस्टम इन द सेंस की स्टूडेंट हैज अ, वो आप 10th स्टैंडर्ड तक के बच्चे को आप उतना स्ट्रेस नहीं दे रहे हो, राइट? अभी मेरा बैड लक देखो, 9th में आके मेरे पेरेंट्स ने वापस गुजरात बोर्ड में नहीं डाला, मेरे को सीबीएसई में डाल दिया. सो सीबीएसई इज +100. अभी पाइथागोरस थ्योरम समवेयर इन सीबीएसई हैड बीन टॉट. अभी गुजरात बोर्ड से महाराष्ट्र बोर्ड में मैंने कभी पाइथागोरस थ्योरम सुना ही नहीं था मेरी लाइफ. So what happened was, 9th standard I failed my maths test. Bad. I think that was the first time in my life I saw a failure on a test. By midterm, I was in single digits. Luckily that year we had an earthquake. I mean, so not luckily, unluckily. I mean, that's a very sad part. But I'm talking from me being promoted, right? हमारे को फाइनल एग्जाम नहीं देना पड़ा, तो मैं प्रमोट हो गया. अब मैं 10th में आ गया, बोर्ड एग्जाम की बात
2001 earthquake, right?
2001 की बात कर रहा हूँ. Yes. Very very sad year, very very sad year. Unluckily,
I was born
saw
that
a few
year.
things with my. You were born that year? Oh, no. I mean, in the sense, from people of my perspective, जिन्होंने हमारी आंखों से कुछ चीजें ऐसी देखी जो कि हम unluckily we can't unsee in our lives now. ठीक है, जो है life brings its own challenges. Anyway, so I remember. So now, of course, my class teacher had to teach everyone, right? And she had to teach. I was going to fail my 10th 100% maths का paper because मुझे life में कुछ समझ ही नहीं आ रहा था. I had no clue what was going on. Which is when somebody recommended one individual, one gentleman in Ahmedabad to go speak with. And Gil sir, बड़े अच्छे आदमी, उन्होंने he took on the challenge. He said, चलो भाई मैं पढ़ा दूंगा. वो formally नहीं पढ़ाते थे, but उन्होंने कहा ठीक है मैं पढ़ा दूंगा, कोई बात नहीं. He's a scientist with ISRO.
Wow.
Now consider it this way: he's a scientist with ISRO. So his understanding of physics and maths is at a different level altogether.
True.
But unhone, in those 4 months that he taught me, never did I ever once feel that I'm speaking with a scientist. वो मेरे को उन्होंने मैथ्स इतनी अच्छी तरीके से ब्रेक डाउन करी मेरे लाइफ में. मेरे बोर्ड में 75 आए. इट वाज, आज के दिन में लोग बोलेंगे अरे यार बोर्ड में 75 क्या बातें कर रहे हो यार, 99 से कम आता तो कोई आपका फ्यूचर नहीं है. बैक इन 2002 when I appeared for my 10th board, 75 was still, it was not a massive score, it was a decent score. But for a person who was about to fail his 10th because of maths, right, he could score a 75, all because this one person, he said, you know what, no, I can't teach him in that manner. मुझे इस लड़के को एक अलग तरीके से पढ़ाना होगा. I'll have to come down to his level, find that point where, you know, we both start speaking the same language, and then वहां से I'll have to bring him up to that point. अगर वो मेरी लाइफ में नहीं होता, मैं शायद फॉर्मल एजुकेशन छोड़ घर से भाग जाता, मैं फॉर्मल एजुकेशन छोड़ देता, राइट. एंड आई टेल यू व्हाट, माय मैथ्स टीचर एट स्कूल, जीनियस, ब्रिलियंट लेडी, एक्सीलेंट एट टीचिंग, राइट. एंड उन्होंने भी खुद जो है मुझे बहुत पढ़ाया. मतलब इनके पास भी जब मैं गिल सर के पास गया तो इसलिए ही शायद मैं रिकवर कर पाया क्योंकि उमा मैम ने मेरे को ऑलरेडी बहुत अच्छा पढ़ा दिया था लाइफ में. वो मेरे को एक पॉइंट तक ले आई थी डिस्पाइट द चैलेंजेस दैट शी वाज फेसिंग. तो अगर वो एम्पैथेटिक टीचिंग मुझे नहीं मिलती इन दोनों टीचर्स से, मैं लाइफ में आगे नहीं बढ़ पाता. उसके बाद मेरे को और भी ऐसे टीचर्स मिले जो कि बिल्कुल जिनके अंदर एम्पैथी थी नहीं व्हेन इट केम टू टीचिंग. एंड उनकी क्लास के अंदर बहुत स्टूडेंट्स फेल हुए. उनकी क्लास में बहुत स्टूडेंट्स फेल हुए. Not at school, I'm talking about later. And yeah, so you know, yes, that is how it has to. Communication has to always work at an
even I
empathetic level.
can relate with it because when I said earlier that I have to go to lower standards to deliver a speech, so what I faced is initially I was in 9th grade when I started giving speeches. So initially I was given Amrita Vidyalaya.
Oh, okay, nice. All right.
So I used to go in. I started in 9th, so I used to go from 8th, 7th, 6th. 6th तक कोई दिक्कत नहीं. I used to deliver as I was speaking to my friends. But then from 5th onwards, I saw that students were getting bored. I was like, what? 6th तक तो सबको मजा आ रहा था. 5th में अचानक क्या हो गया? But then slowly after giving speeches, I came to know that from 5th, a different section of students begin when I go down the standards, and I have to change things accordingly. जो मैं 6th तक बोलता था, they can 80% relate to it, but in 5th, it came down to 40%. So I have to change my words, I have to change my grammar, I have to change the way I speak to be able to make them understand what I'm speaking, and also in terms of content as well, because I cannot give their philosophical content. उनको मुझे थोड़ा मस्ती टाइप का भी देना पड़ता है. Like because I was sales value ambassador, value talk करनी थी, तो 6th तक ठीक है, थोड़ा बहुत philosophical I can give, but 5th I have to give them as call to action things कि अभी घर पे जाके आप ये करो, घर पे जाके आप वो करो. Till 6th I was like कि हाँ ये XYZ हो सकता है, XYZ है, but to 5th and below I need to give them call to action.
Absolutely.
That whole thing, I think that can only come through being able to deliver those speeches and to be able to have that experience of delivering those speeches.
Absolutely, absolutely. Yes, 100%. And good, I'm happy to hear that you could figure that out and make the changes.
But that too took a very long time, and because I was not because I was not that good in lower standards, there was students were given a monthly check that the students were giving remarks on who came and what they should give. So lower standards में 4 out of 10 जैसा चल रहा था, and
बताओ,
eight
छोटे बच्चों ने फेल कर
eight
दिया.
seventh 8 7th 6th तक मेरा 8 on 10 9 on 10 जैसा चल रहा था.
9 out of 10. Fair.
So
But
after
Jay, there is
getting those
something.
things, I was able to understand. हाँ sir.
नहीं. Go on. Finish your point. Finish your point.
I was just telling that after those things, I was able to understand कि ये changes लाने.
लाने होते हैं. अभी अच्छा, another thing that you said was very interesting. You said, but it took a very long time, and you sounded dejected about it. But you shouldn't be. पता है, हमको ऐसा लगता है कि चीजें ओवरनाइट हो जाएंगी. अनलकीली हमें ना, impatience जो है ना, impatience एक बहुत बड़ी trait है humanity की. This is not an Indian thing.
In podcast as well. You won't believe me.
Sure.
This is 25th or 26th podcast of mine.
Wow.
And to be able to reach this number, I have reached to more than एक दो हफ्ते में 3,000 पहुंच जाऊंगा मैं. 3,000 people. And from that, I am able to get or do 25 podcasts.
Damn, that is a tight number. नहीं, it is true. मैं आपको बताता हूँ, हमको ऐसा ही लगता है, सबको यही लगता है कि भाई अच्छा आज हम 1000 लोग हो चुके हैं तो अब हमारे पास उसमें से कम 10% conversion मिल जाएगा. ऐसे नहीं होता. Things are not a statistical chart where trends are steady and it will be recreated for everyone. True. In fact, it can be so irritating at times. हम लोग को कभी-कभी ऐसे ही लगता है कि हम लोग भी अरे यार आज के दिन में ये हो चुके हैं, हम यहाँ से ये हो जाना चाहिए. And you like, अरे ये तो कुछ भी नहीं हुआ. And then we realize we're just being impatient. We need to be patient. True. Yes, we'll reach there. We will eventually get to that path. And हमको कभी-कभी क्या लगता है, I think unluckily impatience is a trait of humanity, but feeling bad about it is a particularly desi thing.
True.
Okay? कि anything that is slow is not good. Right? ठीक है, I can understand why that has happened. We are a population of 1.2 billion people, so everyone's clamoring for the same set of resources. So everyone's trying to get to that the fastest so that they can get the biggest piece of the pie, slice of the pie. But unluckily in the process क्या हो गया है, हम लोग लेके तो बहुत सारा आ जाते हैं, फिर indigestion हो जाता है, क्योंकि खा लेते सारा, फिर indigestion हो जाता है, फिर मजा कुछ भी नहीं आता. फिर जिसने इतना सा लेके, जिसको फाइनली इतना सा मिला होता है, वो उसका बड़े मजे ले लेके खा रहा होता है, हम उसको देख के जलते रहते हैं. इससे ज्यादा we should not be in a hurry.
True, and I think same happened with my podcast as well. My first podcast, why it went down, because I thought कि I was lucky enough to be able to get Ojas Rawal as the first guest on my podcast. तो मुझे लगा कि यार ओजस रावल है, इतनी सारी स्पीचेस दी है मैंने, तो 100% मेरा मतलब आराम से मेरे को 1000 व्यूज तो आ ही जाएंगे. आई वाज इन दैट क्योंकि उनके 10-20 हजार से ज्यादा फॉलोअर्स थे उस टाइम पे. आई वाज लाइक 10% भी निकालूं तो भी 1000 व्यूज तो आने ही चाहिए. एंड एट द एंड ऑफ पॉडकास्ट लाइव सेशन का वो एंड दबाते दबाते आई वाज लाइक 100 तो हो जाएंगे ना.
हाँ, ऐसे ही होता है बाबा, ऐसे ही होता है. It takes forever. ये जैसे तुम बता रहे हो, हम लोग का जो पहले 1000 followers on Instagram, oh god, इतना painful था. But yes, of course. Anyways,
I'm in that pain. I'm in that big pain.
You are no, but keep it at Jay. I think you're doing a brilliant job. Look, we listen to a lot of podcasts. I did another podcast recently as well. That was my first podcast where I was a guest. Yours is the second show.
Yeah,
right. And those boys,
those KBC podcast boys. We actually me Ritik bhai, Tarun bhai, and one from Visionary Show. We three have started another different podcast where we go on YouTube, we sit live and discuss on 3 4 topics. So it's like a chill podcast type. We have named it also
Lovely,
Super
lovely.
Ladda. So it's
Acha,
like we go there, we chill out, we speak on few topics, and 1 2 घंटे बात हो जाती
nice, nice. So I was going to say the same thing, Tarun and sorry,
है.
Ritik,
Ritik.
right? Ritik. So Tarun and Ritik, they've done a very brilliant job, right? You've done a brilliant job. बहुत अलग structure है दोनों
हाँ.
podcast का approach बहुत अलग है, but the way they are doing it, the way you are doing it, I'm sure both of you, like the two of them, all of you will see success. Impatient मत होना, stay at it. लगे रहना.
Sure, sir.
And I think you're already featured. You sent me some list of achievements. I think you're already featuring on Google very well, aren't you?
Yeah, under the search term India's most inspiring podcast, when you go to the recommendation list of Google Podcasts, those sliders,
That itself is
my
huge.
2 podcasts are there right now.
Lovely, brilliant. Congratulations on that.
Thank you,
Congratulations
sir.
on that.
Thank you,
मैं
sir.
तो आज तक किसी भी चीज के लिए सजेस्ट नहीं हुआ यार. मैं तो वायरल होने के लिए वेट कर रहा हूँ. कभी तो लाइफ में वायरल होऊंगा. शायद मेरे पैसे बच जाएंगे थोड़े
But
बहुत
I actually came to know about you through Instagram Reels.
Is it?
Yeah.
Okay, so it's working well. So that means it's not been all bad for me. Good. I'm happy to hear that.
So from there, I was like, I haven't, I just began podcast. So I was like, कि इनको लाना है, but not now because I was trying to finding my niche. I was trying to
Right,
finding my niche
right.
at that time कि कौन से niche में I should go more. So first I began from those acting wala because I got Ojas Rahul. So I was like acting
Osis Raval,
interview
yeah.
stars. उसके बाद फर्स्ट पॉडकास्ट के बाद मुझे लगा कि यार स्टार्स कुछ ज्यादा ही बाहर है बिकॉज कोई कनेक्शन नहीं है मेरा प्लस ऐसे पॉडकास्ट के बाद आई वाज आल्सो नॉट एक्सपेक्टिंग ओजस रावल टू सजेस्ट मी टू एनी ऑफ हिज फ्रेंड्स सो आई थॉट कि that is the max I can reach in terms of stars. I can go there but after different in next time. So I thought कि अब कौन सा niche पकड़े. So I started in entrepreneurship. And because in entrepreneurship I went well for a few times. My podcasts were ranked 40th all over India under entrepreneurship category in month of January 2021
Nice.
from Apple Podcasts.
Oh, क्या बात है. Apple Podcast is actually brilliant because a lot of people on Apple Pod. There are more. I think there are more audience on Apple Podcast than Google right now. If I'm not right. If I'm not wrong.
Apple Podcast is more in Google. Apple is more than
Google. It is. Yeah. So that's brilliant. That's brilliant. Congratulations again. That's an excellent feat.
And after that, I thought कि entrepreneurship, because I don't have much knowledge, so हर बार question same ही होंगे. Because if I am not an entrepreneur, if I don't know much about entrepreneurship, then up to what extent I can ask? I can ask up to a certain extent. After that, चीजें same ही होंगी. So then I was like, मैं क्या करूँ? Because I have given philosophical speeches in those 2 years, I thought कि self-help will be the best thing where I can go. And in self-help, I can catch up with entrepreneurship trend. I can catch up with careers as well. I can catch up with communication. I can catch up with almost all possible genres, because ultimately if I'm able to relate it with career is also part of self-help, and
absolutely it is the biggest self-help.
Yeah, and on the basis of career I can touch every topic.
Correct.
So self-help is what I discovered, and now because of that I thought ki chalo self-help, I have now catched it up. So now I am contacting everyone whom I got to know previously.
Wonderful,
and luckily Tarun bhai and Ritik bhai had a podcast with you, so I was like कि हाँ अब करूँगा तो ज़्यादा फर्क पड़ेगा, because if you say no then I can even take their help कि भैया आप जरा
Fair enough. No, I wouldn't have said no in any case. The way you approached me, I really appreciated that. So that was well done.
Yes,
and all the best with this. All the best with this.
Thank you so much, sir. So overall, in terms of communication, in terms of as a guest, how was this whole podcast?
Wonderful. I think you touched the right points. I think I the way you allowed this podcast to flow, I think I was able to actually put it across कि भाई communication क्या होती है,
Hmm.
and communication, and so were you, right? So were you, and you were directing it really well. So I hope people who are listening to this podcast will actually go away, will end this one on the note, and with the takeaway that vocabulary is not everything,
True.
right? And communication is, and I think the way this whole thing has been directed has definitely put that message across clearly to everyone. So Jay, this was indeed very well done. It was very
Thank you,
well
sir.
managed. And you know what, if in future you feel that I gave a good performance today myself, and if you need me for something else, I'd love to come back again. Why not?
Sure. So we can touch upon astronomy.
Astronomy, not astrology. I'm one of those guys who hates astrology. मुझे मेरे को उसमें कोई यकीन नहीं
No,
है.
no,
अभी
no.
फिर बहुत ट्रोलिंग होने वाला मेरा. ये देखो, हमारे देश का लड़का ये एस्ट्रोलॉजी में नहीं मानता है. बट ठीक है, that's the fact. Astronomy, अरे यार, I'll have to do a lot of reading. बहुत बहुत YouTube बहुत कंज्यूम करना पड़ेगा. बट ठीक है, sure, why not? Maybe I would love.
Sure, sure, sure. And this is the longest podcast till now.
Wow, is it?
Yeah,
Chalo, I've lived up to my
we have
reputation.
crossed 1.5 hour mark, which
Brilliant.
was longest before.
Awesome. Awesome. Awesome.
So thank you so much for coming on this podcast and actually giving those deep points to be able to so that a layman can even understand what exactly communication is. So thank you so much for helping us and giving us this knowledge and coming on this podcast and just waiting for
No,
our next podcast.
it was an absolute pleasure. And thank you for giving me the platform.
Thank you, sir.
All right, Jay. Bye bye then.
Bye, sir.